Welcome to On Target Radio, Segment 6, where just because the show ends doesn't mean the conversation stops. Now here's your hosts, David Lombardo and Gretchen Fritz.
Welcome to segment 6, and the question this evening is going to be, did we really confiscate guns in this country? The interesting thing is this president and Hillary Clinton have they have morphed from talking about gun control. Now they're out now talking about gun confiscation.
Yeah.
And they cited recently, the president cited recently, veiled initially about how we know we can reduce the mass shooters. Other countries have done it, our allies, countries similar to us, Australia and Great Britain.
Right.
Which, what do they have in common?
They have both completely banned guns and confiscated all the guns that were there.
Exactly. And that was what, 2 weeks ago, I think?
It was closer to a month.
Was it?
3 or 4 weeks ago.
And since then,
Whenever that shooting was.
Hillary has literally come out and said we should repeal the Second Amendment. And here's the problem.
And they both keep saying England and Australia.
Right, England and Australia. As if the plan worked out well for them.
Right.
The murder rates are...
It went perfectly.
Exactly. What could possibly go wrong with that, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. It's interesting. What they don't get is Australia and Great Britain have always been sort of brought along with it's not a right, it's a gift that the government gives you.
Mm-hmm.
And when they got it taken away, they complained, certainly, bitterly, but they always complained in the context of, we like to hunt.
It's tradition.
Yes, it's a tradition in the country. That's very different than in this country.
Right.
It's very different in this country.
I personally think that guns are incredibly integral to American culture and history.
Sure.
I mean, it is tradition, but it's very historical, and it has a lot to do with our founding, and it has a lot to do with our revolution against England.
There's many facets of it too, not just the self-defense
So
and
many.
the tyrannical forces or whatever, if you want to say it that way, or sport shooting or hunting. There's so many different areas of it. Each one of those things even has their own little subcategories.
Sure, absolutely. But the bottom line, they keep trying to paint this, they finally, a few years ago, began including protecting your home. Remember how they wouldn't even say that. It was hunting. Well, we don't want to take away your ability to hunt. And people go, it's not about hunting. We don't want to take away
Well,
hunting.
the hunters go, that's good,
Yeah.
but then everybody else goes, it's not about hunting.
Exactly. So they finally acquiesced to protecting yourself in your home because the Supreme Court said,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a point
Hello,
too.
McDonald.
Well, about that, or the hunters like, hey, okay, well, I've noticed something within the gun community, for lack of a better explanation, that sometimes they support their own purposes, but they don't support the other ones. Like.
Well, right, and that's what I was kind of.
Divide and conquer.
Yeah, like silencers. There'll be a group that'll, or suppressors. There'll be a group that'll support that, and then other groups that aren't helping with that, and they're all in the same community. So it's like, come on, guys, it's all.
well,
about us.
and you know what? The Democrats are very good at divide and conquer.
Their,
They have it down to an art
That's their
form.
specialty.
It really is. They have it down to an art form. They look at a block in terms of how much power does that block have. And if it has too much power to suit them, they figure out how to drive wedges in between them so you're at each other's throat. This started years ago with trapping. Trapping was always sort of came under the hunting umbrella, right?
Sure.
And then under Clinton, he stacked he took Sierra Club people, all these anti-hunting type people, and put them in appointed positions in the U.S. Forest Service and all of that. And so the first thing they did is they looked, because an awful lot of people like to hunt. So the first thing they did is they carved out trappers. And the average hunter could have cared less about trapping. And so they just go, oh yeah, okay, fine. And you're right, it's divide and conquer. They just splinter off a group, now you get a little smaller. And they splinter off another group, get a little smaller. They've done it with blacks, and they're all at odds. Blacks are at odds with Hispanics, are at odds with, you know what I'm saying? And they get this, if you don't vote for us, this is what they're going to do.
Right, we need to come together as Americans and preserve our rights, just flat across the board.
Yeah. I think part of it too is just maybe lack of education or ignorance. Like, I don't really know that much about suppressors,
Right,
and I don't hunt,
right.
and so to me, it doesn't rank on my list of important things because
Right.
I have a lack of knowledge about it. Now I understand it's helpful for hunting, but that's about the extent of what I know about
Well, it's
it.
also helpful for like the sportsman's club when you're shooting outdoors, you know, you help keep the noise down for your neighbors.
Well, the irony of suppressors, this is the true irony. In most of Europe, if you want to hunt, you're required to have a
Right.
suppressor.
Right.
Which is funny, because Europe is pretty anti-gun.
Right.
And yet even they go, whoa, too much noise,
So
you gotta have a
what being the
suppressor.
difference here in our country, you know, I think they put a tax on them and some places they're legal, you know.
Well, there are places in the US you can own suppressors. There
Oh,
are
yeah.
states that allow suppressors.
No, I understand that.
Yeah.
I'm saying some states it's illegal, some states it is legal.
Yeah,
But there's, on any state you go to, federal law, there's a tax stamp that's required on it too, so it's like.
yeah, right, you're paying premium to do it.
Yeah.
It goes, I mean, it literally goes back to the 20s and 30s when, you know, the mob and all of that kind of stuff.
Sure.
And the average person has this misconception. They think if you put a silencer on a firearm, it goes,
Right.
which it clearly does not.
No.
It makes a pretty good sound anyway. It's just not that thunderous lang.
At least anything that's decent sized caliber, you know.
Yeah, yeah,
If you have a
exactly.
small 22, it's a really small charge, you might be able to quiet it down quite a bit, but it's still gonna be.
It's still gonna
hear
make
something.
noise. Yeah,
still
it's
gonna
not,
be
it's not like you're gonna shoot somebody and no one is gonna hear it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not like in the movies.
It-
But yeah, as we were saying, not only when people came over here and populated America, not only did they need guns to hunt food for sustenance, but they also, and George pointed this out, they also had to protect themselves from wild animals that
Right.
did not
Sure.
exist in the old country any
That's
longer.
very
So
true.
bears, mountain lions, things like that. They needed to be able to protect themselves from animals. Sometime, no, I don't know about the East Coast Indians, but I know the farther west we went, we often encountered hostile Indians, hostile Native Americans that they had to defend themselves against in many cases. And then there was the issue of, that was one of the main issues when the Revolutionary War started, was the Great Britain, or England, tried to take the colonists' guns away. And
Right.
the colonists basically said, oh, hell no. We saw you do it to Ireland, we saw you do it to other places.
Right.
We know, and they did it to the Native Americans too. And they said, we know your MO, and we're not interested, and they
Yeah.
fought back.
The colonists were objecting to the tax on tea,
Mm-hmm.
which ironically is fractions of a penny, as I recall. Of course, that's back then, but
Right.
it's minuscule. It wasn't, I wasn't there at the time, despite what you may think, but I don't think it was so much the money as the fact that they were being taxed and they had no, they were not
They had no
represented
say.
in Parliament. They had no say. They just said, well, we're gonna pay more, that's all. It's that simple.
Yeah.
And
And they were probably taxed unequally than their brethren back in the old country.
oh, no doubt.
And that really was a sticking point as well, of like, you asked us to come over here and settle this new country and take it as yours, basically stake your claim. And we're going through all these hardships on your behalf, and you're taxing us more heavily than the people who stayed back
Right.
in their cushy life in England.
What literally ended up happening was the governor, a Brit, well, they were all Brits, but
Right.
the governor, who was Brit representing the monarchy, I think it was Howe or Gage, maybe it was, I can't remember now, doesn't matter. Like now, today, sensed that the natives were getting restless over that and dispatched his troops to Concord and Lexington, where there was an armory
Right.
of colonist weapons, to seize the weapons.
Right.
And that was the oh hell no.
Yes.
Um,
That was the shot heard around.
Yeah,
the
they shot it around the world, which I've read a lot about that. Apparently it was a Brit. The first one was fired by someone from the British Army. And how many were killed, that number, I've seen a number of things. They say 50, 70, something like that. But the
Sure.
point is, it literally touched off the Civil War. Trying to confiscate the colonists' guns touched off the Civil War.
Right.
Touched off a Civil War.
No, Revolutionary War.
I'm sorry. Well, yes, that's
That's
true,
true.
but we were colonists. In a way, it was a Civil War. I mean,
Well,
you're right, it was a
I
Revolutionary
suppose.
War.
I mean, it
But
was
we
what
were
we call
colonists,
the
so yeah, we
Revolutionary
were,
War.
yeah. I don't mean to confuse you, they didn't have blue coats, they had red coats. They had red coats. And the colonists had junky,
Whatever.
whatever thing that they wore.
They had whatever they could get their hands on.
And, you know, we love history. The truth is that the colonists probably should not have been able to win that war. But England was tied up, what was it, Spain or France, or they had a war with, I can't remember which one.
They were waging war on
It was,
multiple
yeah,
fronts.
they were fighting on multiple fronts, and in the end, here we are.
Well, and I think also having a very large ocean separating us was definitely to our advantage. It
Oh,
took
sure,
them,
sure.
it took them a very long time to get more soldiers and more
Yeah.
supplies.
Or even to communicate and get orders on how
Right,
to handle stuff.
exactly.
Yeah.
So that was very much largely in our
Yeah.
favor.
I think that the main
Home
point,
court
the
advantage.
main point about the confiscation issue is, if you think about it, on the surface, at first blush, it has to be, you have to be willing to have your gun taken. Now, it can draw out for a long time and get ugly,
Right.
but initially, there's 300 million guns roughly in the United States. Now, some people have more than one gun, but that's a lot of people. And I would say, what, at least half are gonna go, no? I mean, there's gonna be some percentage of those people who are going, well, it's the law, okay. But I would think, you know,
Yeah,
how many people do we know?
There's some weak
That are
people
gonna
who
go,
will
"Hell no."
voluntarily.
As far as letting someone come and take their guns?
Yeah,
Well, you know, it's a good question. Is it gonna come down to, there's a lot they'll say hell no, and there's a lot that'll just fold too. I think that anyway.
well, maybe. I think there's gonna be people taking pot shots. I really do.
Yeah, I mean, that's,
And
I think
it's not that I
eventually-
would advocate
I think
it, but
eventually that's gonna happen.
you
Right.
will.
I mean, I don't know, I guess it depends on how the government goes about it.
exactly.
If first they make a law and they say, turn in your guns by such and such a date, there, as you said, there are people who will comply just because they're law-abiding
It's a
citizens
law,
and that's what
right.
they do.
Right.
And then the people who don't comply and they suspect, they suspect that, you know, we still have our guns, by way of example. They may start to, you know, send, you know, as with other types of non-compliance, they start to send you letters, or they start to call you on the phone, or they start to knock on your door and say, you know,
I think that's gonna
would
take
you
a lot
please
of
hand them
time.
over?
I mean,
Yeah.
no matter what, I mean,
Oh,
it's gonna take
yeah.
a lot of time. So my thought is, well, you know what, one way maybe around that too for some people, and maybe, I'm sure a lot of people consider this too, you know, to have firearms that they hide away somewhere. You know, give up their other ones that might have more documentation with them.
That's true, but I will tell you that they have such sophisticated stuff. You'd have to take it out in the middle of nowhere, where you have no connection to it, you know,
Right.
traceable connection.
Right.
Not like your summer home or something.
Right.
Because they can go over your backyard with, they got a gizmo, just go over your backyard
That's
and
gonna
they
take
can tell
a
them
lot of
something.
time.
Yeah.
I mean, house to house.
Yeah.
I mean,
Right, and I think eventually, if they were really serious about it, you know, that's what they would have to do, is eventually they send someone to like, okay, we're coming in, we're taking them, we're searching, we're tossing your
Right.
house, and that's when
Change it up.
shots are fired.
Change
Yeah.
it up.
When you hear a lot of people say, well, you know, is law enforcement really gonna do that? You know, are they really be willing, or military members are really be willing to kick doors in and take away guns?
I think most won't, but there'll be some.
But then I think back to, well, what about the Nazis, for example, you know?
Yeah,
Why would someone think that they would do that? You know, they're hurting
Right.
other people.
and yet they did.
Even if they did, right, so,
Right.
you know, what's to say that it won't happen to certain people? It might not even be our people.
But again, historically, it's ingrained in our culture. Even Germany is a good example. Germans used guns for hunting and that kind of thing. And so when the government came along, the government sold it exactly as this government is selling it.
Right.
It's for the people, it's for the
Right,
children.
safety.
This is safety. And they literally grew up in a culture where they go, oh, well, okay.
Right,
That's not really Americans.
no,
Americans don't have that attitude.
we're kind of about civil disobedience in.
That's how we were founded.
In a large regard.
We are.
You
The
know,
problem is some of it's getting in the way, but be that as it may, their civil disobedience is my crummy guys should be locked up.
Right,
But then in a way, that's what makes the country great, because we all have our opinions.
right,
Where we get into trouble, and we talked about this on the show, one of the segments, everybody always talks about conservatives are the extremists. It's the liberals that keep going, drag them out in the street and kill them.
Right.
You wanna own a gun, you should be shot with one first.
Right.
You don't hear that coming from From our side,
No.
Right.
we always talk about, let's vote this guy out, you know, let's get him removed from
Right.
office. We're looking for this law and order thing. And they're saying we're the ones who want to shoot cops.
Although on the flip side, we did also talk about literal head explosions.
What?
Literal head explosions.
Yeah.
But that's a figurative thing.
Well, that's it, right.
That's like a joking type thing, not
Right.
like make someone's head explode.
We're not actually
That's what
looking
they're
to have
talking
somebody's
about.
head
Right.
blow up. It's a, wasn't that something on television? Didn't that come from TV?
I don't remember.
I think it did.
I
Where
don't-
it came from.
yeah, I
We just-
don't
It
know.
kind of popped into someone's head and we brought
I
it
don't
up.
know who invented it, but I wanted to do it on the show.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Which never materialized, but,
we couldn't find enough heads.
but, you know, it makes me, when you're talking about who would do it, who would do the confiscation,
Right.
if it wasn't voluntary and it became forced, who would actually execute that? And it puts me in mind of certain movies where people who work for the government are no longer necessarily the good guys.
Right,
You know, no longer necessarily enforcing the Constitution, they're enforcing whatever it is
the current government.
right, their bosses tell them
The UN
to
will do
do.
it.
Right, they would happily
That's,
do
They'd
it.
love to
that's
do
what I
it.
was gonna say.
Yeah.
But
They would
here's
have
the
to
thing,
do it.
this is the interesting thing, and there's a
Smart.
comment here, and it really does make sense. Clinton, we're talking about her, Clinton knows what every American gun control advocate knows, namely that a substantial number of Americans see their weapons as political tools of last resort. They won't relinquish their firearms at the government's request. Now, here's the catch. At some point, when they're knocking down your neighbor's door, sacking his house looking for a gun, even people who don't own guns at some point go, wait a minute, this is not right. Because that's the typical American culture.
Right.
But they're gonna be in fear and stay in their houses because they're not gonna have anything to defend themselves with. They're just gonna go
Well,
with it.
it's true, I mean, you're right. I guess I have more,
You're thinking they're gonna protest in general and say the government has to stop doing this,
Right.
but I think by the time it gets to that point,
Right.
it's too late.
Exactly.
By that time, you've already got to a totalitarian government,
Right.
and no amount of protesting and free speech.
what's the quote? From time
No, no.
periodically, the tree of liberty has to be refreshed with the blood of
Blood.
tyrants and patriots.
You know, you need something to produce that blood.
So here's the line. Remember we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, and I'm not advocating anything, but I'm pointing out,
Absolutely not.
I am pointing out just the sheer numbers. If there are 300 million firearms in this country, okay, if just 20% of them said no, what's that number come out to be? 60 million people. That is something like 10 times the entire military and law enforcement establishment.
Wait, you say it's people or firearms?
Well, we don't know. That's the problem is that we don't have hard numbers.
Because, you know, if you go by David's collection, it's,
Well, But
That's right.
we literally, we don't know that.
I've heard 80 to 85 million gun owners.
Okay, so let's say there's 85 million gun owners. 10% is 8.5 million people. That's still more. You see what I'm saying? And so if just 10% of those people go, no. Now, here's the interesting part, and this is the big warning to ISIS too. You're coming on our soil, whether it's the blue hat guys or ISIS or whoever it is. You're coming on our soil. Suddenly, the rules have just reversed. You're coming to us. Guess who the rebels end up being? Us. We're the ones who can go between the gangways and shoot you as you drive by. What worked for you in some third world,
Crap all.
I can say that, can't I?
Well, on the internet,
Yeah, that's
yeah.
right, it's the internet, shithole, is now, the tables just got turned. You wanna come and attack us?
Good luck.
You're on our turf now.
Right.
Now the rules have changed.
Right.
And you've got, come on, be serious here, Rick. How many guys do we know
a lot.
that are just going,
Right.
okay, bring it on, bring it on.
Right.
You know what I'm
They
saying?
got their ISIS hunting kit from, well, there's a company that sells them locally.
Is it really?
Yeah.
ISIS hunting kit.
Civilian Force Arms sells a rifle with body armor and some other gear with it as a kit for ISIS
I
hunting
love
kit. Yeah,
I love it.
check them out.
My birthday's coming up.
You don't have any R yet either. So
The one
Dave-
thing
I
about
don't,
Americans,
I don't.
the one thing about the American culture, we may disagree on politics and stuff like that, but most Americans think it should be fair.
Mhm.
Most Americans, and there are those who obviously don't, but most Americans, if they see you're getting the short end of the deal, they don't like that.
Right.
They root for the underdog. They root for the poor schmuck that's getting screwed because they recognize they're next.
Mhm. Yeah.
So the other thing, a question I got off Facebook too is about.
About this right now?
Yeah, about-
Somebody's listening to us on Facebook.
Yes, yeah.
Hi.
Yeah,
Thank you.
one of our guys from the club actually. He said, ask about what happens when your neighbors start ratting on each other, like, you know, I don't like so-and-so, so I'll report him for having a gun, you know?
I don't think that's gonna matter because they know who's got guns.
Yeah, I think generally for the most part they are.
That's what I kind of figured too, but I mean,
Yeah.
but I'm sure there are some people that, you know, maybe they don't know or.
This is a fantasy if you think you filled out a form at a gun store and it dropped off the
Yeah,
end
at
of the
some
earth.
point in time.
When they do that background check, they're supposed to delete that, and I don't remember what it is. Do you remember the period of time?
Some number of years.
That's what I
Yeah.
thought, and then I've heard conflicting stories on that. I've heard where.
They say they don't have the ability to do it.
Right.
How can you not have the ability to delete something?
Yeah.
Well, I've heard that.
Called
like,
highlight.
if your dealer goes out of business, that one person said, well, then the records, you know, after so many years are gone. But then I've heard, no, when you go out of business, you turn them on to the ATF.
You filled out a form that went to the federal government,
Yeah.
which they're
So
not
it did
supposed to
actually-
keep.
So it did actually get sent in like
Well,
that. Like,
yeah.
it's not- I always was under the
yeah.
impression that they filled it out and they did the background check and they just signed off on it and then the dealer kept that copy and never went anywhere.
It gets,
Well,
it
it's
goes,
all
you're entered in the
electronic
system.
now.
They enter you in the
Not
system.
all of them. Like, I mean,
Well,
I
okay,
have a
maybe
paper
not all,
form,
but the last time I bought a gun,
Well-
it was all on the computer.
So when you fill out the paper form. I
Actually, the
thought-
last 2 times I bought guns, it was
Right.
all on the computer.
Yeah. I mean,
But the
that-
question
that'd be a
is,
different story.
when you fill out on a computer, where does it go?
Right, that's one.
Federal
You
government.
can just-
Bingo,
you can just assume that,
okay?
right.
Now, they're supposed to, according to the law, my understanding is they're supposed to delete them after some period of time.
Yeah.
But I have read where they have said, well, we don't exactly have a way to do that. How can you not have a way to delete
Right.
records?
Well, and,
You can delete emails.
right, hire some high school kid, he can figure it out.
Right, the thing with that was too, normally I thought was, their whole premise was they'll know that you obviously purchased the firearm because you did a background check, but do they know what you purchased? You know, 4473 I think has a serial number.
Here's what I see.
And yeah, I think it does.
The bottom line, I think, is they're gonna know every phone call. All they gotta do is go back into the metadata
Right.
and go gun, comma, firearm, comma, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Semi-automatic, comma, and out Rick's name will pop, vomit it out the machine.
Yes.
We will literally flood the floor,
Mhm.
and they're gonna go, look, all these people, they've made phone calls, they've sent emails with this
Right.
stuff in it. They gotta be gun owners.
Right.
They round up Japanese who are American civilians,
Mhm. Yeah.
and no other reason
They were
than they
citizens.
were Japanese by look, by, you know,
Right.
by nationality, no, not by nationality, they were American citizens. And
Yeah.
put them in
Most of
concentration
them were
camps.
second generation.
Right,
Well, and the question of neighbors, it's actually a good thing that most of us don't really know our neighbors the way that we used to 60 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and in this regard, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
I guess my neighbors on both sides do know that
Person I
I'm
know.
a person. Yeah, probably my neighbors on one side know more than the neighbors on the other side, but yeah, they know we're pro Second Amendment, so I suppose they could rat us out, but, you know, most of my neighbors don't know me that well, so
here's the other
most
thing.
of them don't know.
The other thing is, people like us have a school, and we've had
Right.
students. I mean, this is a network.
Mhm,
Literally, it's like a neural network.
mhm.
And you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
We're connected, I mean,
Especially in the sport side of things. That is,
Right.
Everybody knows everybody all across the whole U.S. It's amazing. I mean, I met a lot of people this past year just getting into it for the first full year with like doing 3-gun and so forth. So it's pretty interesting.
but you know what? It works in their favor too, because how quickly, now, you know, Obama apparently has the ability to disrupt the internet.
yeah, I saw that.
Yeah. But
Which
how
is
quickly
disturbing.
could you put the word out? Remember the guys who could stand on bridges? Remember them?
Overpass for America.
Overpass for
yeah.
America. Now, they didn't have any website.
No
They
website.
did just last minute communicate, we're gonna be on this bridge.
Yeah, yeah.
And people showed up. With all of the contacts that we have,
Mhm,
just thinking of us, ourselves,
right.
Facebook and all of that,
Right.
how quickly could you say, you know what, they're invading
But
Chicago?
how quickly can they shut that down on you?
Well, pretty quickly,
Yeah,
well,
boom.
maybe not pretty quickly, because there isn't an on-off switch.
Yeah.
I mean, you can go, you get on the backbone of the net, you could be going through anywhere.
Well, and not only that, there's the internet, but then like, SMS messages, text messages, that's different.
That's a whole other, that's a
completely
subcarrier that,
different.
right,
Yeah,
that's a
it's
subcarrier.
completely
Right, but I mean,
different.
I'm sure if it's not instantaneously like a light switch, I'm sure that fairly quickly they can shut down all that stuff.
Maybe not.
Or
I
do
mean,
it
it's,
by regional sections at a time, you know?
Mhm.
maybe, but my point is,
Using
how
If they were
quickly,
determined, if
how
they were
quickly
really
could you get the word out? They're invading, ISIS is invading Chicago,
Yeah.
meet me at Roosevelt Road and whatever,
Right.
and get tons of people.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Sure.
yeah.
Mass messaging, you know, I'll tell your friends.
My shotgun's feeling itchy.
It's missing the trigger on it's missing your touch
Well,
to it.
Yes,
we're
exactly.
hoping this doesn't happen.
It's not.
Absolutely. That'd be horrible.
We're hoping this doesn't happen.
Yeah,
But
well,
there's a
and,
lot of people all excited about it.
you
Just
know,
like the zombie apocalypse.
Not
It
to-
keeps-
yeah,
It
not
keeps
to-
getting worse every day.
not to give too much of a window into our private lives, but yeah, my father and I had a conversation the other
About
day.
zombie apocalypse?
No, about gun confiscation, about the government coming for our guns, and basically we agreed between the two of us that if that ever happened, I said if that ever happened, it would be like The Unforgiven up in here, and he said, yes, that is correct. If you've seen that movie, it's,
I'm trying to think. I probably have.
Audrey Hepburn is the female
Yeah.
star of it, and she's actually a Native American girl that they kidnapped when she was a child, and they raised her as their own,
Okay.
and the Indians want her back, and so the Indians attacked this white family, and there's only like 3 or 4 people in this white family, and they just fight with everything they have until the house is burned down. Half the family's dead, but they fought them off.
In for a penny, in for a pound.
Exactly.
And the other thing is, and we said this I think last week, or the week before, this ain't no third world country.
Mhm.
We got guys who have highly sophisticated gear
Mhm.
and get pretty advanced training.
Yeah.
It's just not, it's not the same thing. It just isn't.
Yeah.
Who knows? I don't know. I think we've exhausted.
I think we have fully explored this topic.
We've fully explored or exploited,
Exploited.
probably both,
Both.
Yeah.
this topic. And all I can say is I certainly hope it doesn't come.
And by the way, in the comment I got now too about the network being shut down and whatnot, and that kind of stuff, someone mentioned the phone company that manages the hard lines would probably put up a huge fight over it being shut down. But then I also wondered, I don't know what your thoughts are on it, I guess, but I wonder if that would even be something that would even matter if it's.
But the thing about the internet is, it's
as
not
useful as
one
hard lines
thing.
anymore.
The internet's not like one cable that runs across the country.
Right, and that's what he's.
So
trying to
if you
say.
shut down whatever the source was in this region, you can get it,
Right.
I don't think it can be
It's
shut down.
overlapping.
Right, I don't think it can be shut up, except, well, even if you did a pulse bomb, well, you would do
It's
without
local,
electricity
yeah.
yourself, but it's not gonna shut down the internet. And here's the thing about, in fact, I wanna mention this the last time we talked about it, and I forgot about it. The whole idea of doing a pulse bomb, and we go back into the dark ages,
Yeah.
but you know what? Our submarines aren't affected. Our aircraft carriers out in the Pacific and the Atlantic aren't affected. We have nuclear weapons all over the frickin' place. If they put us back in the Stone Age, we'll put them back into graves. They'll literally carpet nuke everywhere. You know what I'm saying? And then they like that. That may be good for them. Let them go meet their virgins. But what I'm saying is, this is, did you ever see Dr. Strangelove? I think I've asked you this
Yes.
before. Did you ever see it, Rick?
No. I don't
This,
think so.
if you ever want to see a truly great movie, it's Dr. Strangelove. And the premise simply is the
You can
Russians,
drink a lot beforehand.
Yeah, oh,
Just
yeah.
like that.
the Russians have
Drink some.
I'll take your
created,
words for it.
Drink
the
some.
Russians have created the doomsday machine.
Mhm.
And what it is, because they can't keep up economically, it was a Cold War movie, they can't keep up economically anymore. So what they did is they created a machine that if anybody fires a nuke, chain reaction, the whole earth blows up.
Oh, wow.
But they don't tell anybody. They're waiting to release the information at a press conference at some show weeks later. Meanwhile, an American Air Force general goes off the deep end and launches a SAC attack on Russia.
Oh, wow.
And it's a comedy, as hard as it may be to
It's
believe.
very dark.
It's a very dark comedy. But the point I wanna make is, because you have to have seen the movie to understand this, the point is, if they do that, it doesn't take out any of our troops anywhere else in the world.
Right.
There are nuclear weapons all over the planet that we are in control of.
Sure.
If they nuke them somehow, not nuke them, but if they do pulse bombs over the Atlantic or in the Gulf area, they're taking themselves out. Of course, those clowns,
Yeah.
well, they wouldn't have
They're
their
just-
cell phones to
they're
set
just
up roadside bombs.
Crazy enough to do it.
Yeah. So I'm not overly worried about that. I don't know, maybe I should be, but it is what it is. All right,
I don't know about you, I'm building a Faraday cage in my new house.
you can build it, mine's in. Are you kidding? I'm done. It looks,
I'm gonna have Andy work on
it
it.
looks a little funny from, he'd be the eye, yeah. It looks a little funny from the outside, so I hang ivy from it, and people
Right.
think it's, you know, yeah.
I would just like paint over it so that you couldn't tell.
Yeah, exactly. That definitely exhausts this subject. So, from all of us in our Faraday cages, to all of you, we will be happy to see you next week when we're gonna be talking about, God,
I don't even know yet. We'll find it out on Friday.
we'll find out on Friday, if we're lucky.
Right.
And we're always open to listening to ideas.
Everybody's Googling Faraday cage.